Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. I know you guys are already used to seeing my face in the last 1 week, but sasa tumerudi form, tumerudi rieng. Let me tell you, now we are doing recordings because hey, the year has started and the girl has started becoming busy, and so now videos are really just not possible as much as I would want to make them possible. So we're back to voice records. Today we're going to continue with the book of Psalm, and today we are looking at Psalm 5 or Psalms chapter 5. And I'm going to be reading this chapter word for word from the NLT version, which is a New Living Translation. And then after that, I'm going to share the lessons that I have picked up from this chapter and what I believe the Lord wanted to speak to me and to us from this chapter. All right, so this psalm is written to the choir director or the choir master. It's a psalm of David and it is to be accompanied by the flute. Nikwambia David anajua mpaka which instrument to play what psalm with. David was a creative, honestly. He was a creative. All right, so let's read. It says, "Oh Lord, hear me as I pray. Pay attention to my groaning. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God. For I pray to no one but you. Listen to my voice in the morning, O Lord. Each morning I bring my request to you and wait expectantly. O Lord, you take no pleasure in wickedness." First, let me go back to the verse 3 up where it says, "Each morning I bring my request to you and wait expectantly." I like that because most of the time we take our request to God and then we don't wait expectantly. First, we don't wait because we'll take the request to God and then the next minute, like, "God, have you done anything about this?" Or the next minute you're worrying about it, or the next minute you've picked up your problem and started working on it yourself. And then also sometimes we don't wait expectantly. That means we don't have faith that the Lord is actually going to do the things that we have prayed for. So there's waiting, which is patient, which is being patient. And then there's being patient in hope and in faith that the Lord is going to do the things that you asked him to do. So I like the fact that David would wait expectantly. It says, "Oh God, you take no pleasure in wickedness. You cannot tolerate the sins of the wicked. Therefore, the proud may not stand in your presence, for you hate all who do evil. You will destroy those who tell lies, and the Lord detests murderers and deceivers." Because of your unfailing love, it's funny enough that David would say that the Lord detests murderers and deceivers. And just from reading his story, we know that he was a murderer at some point. And at some point, he was trying to deceive the husband, Uriah, and, make him go and sleep with his wife so that then pregnancy is really kind of near David. As in, even him, he was a deceiver and a murderer. So maybe he had first-hand experience. As a matter of fact, he had first-hand experience of how the Lord detests murderers and deceivers because he himself had committed these sins. Verse 7 says, "Because of your unfailing love, I can enter your house. I will worship at your temple with deepest awe. Lead me in the right path, O Lord, or my enemies will conquer me. Make your way plain for me to follow. My enemies cannot speak a truthful word. Their deepest desire is to destroy others. Their talk is foul like the stench from an open grave. Their tongues are filled with flattery. O God, declare them guilty. Let them be caught up in their own traps. Drive them away because of their many sins, for they have rebelled against you. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them sing joyful praises forever. Spread your protection over them, that all who love your name will be filled with joy. For you bless the godly, O Lord. You surround them with your shield of love." All right, so this psalm is still being done when David is fleeing for his life from Absalom, and it's addressed to the choir master, but the instruments here are specifically flutes, not the other one that had like string instruments. This one is flutes. So Psalm 5 is an imprecatory psalm because David is wishing for God's judgment and punishment to fall on the wicked people. We said imprecatory psalms is where you're calling for vindication of the wicked people. You're calling for judgment of the wicked people. So let me tell you guys, I've really grumbled with this before. As as a believer, should I pray for God's judgment and punishment to fall on wicked people? Am I not supposed to just love all people, But we know that the Lord hates sin. And in verse 5 of this psalm, we say David said that the Lord hates all of evildoers. The Lord doesn't like evildoers. We also know from 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 3 to 4, that the Lord desires for all people to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. So yes, the Lord doesn't like sin. He doesn't like evildoers, and he desires for everybody to come to the knowledge of the truth and to be saved. However, we also know that there will be judgment. And means by the second coming of Jesus, not all people will be saved and not all people will have come to the knowledge of truth. And there will still be liars, unfortunately. There will still be murderers. There will still be blasphemers, mockers, abusers, and thieves on the earth. That's an unfortunate fact, is that there will always be people who are slandering us, cheating us, and being utterly unfair to us. So in a sense, when we pray for judgment over the wicked, we really are praying the will of God, because we see in his word that judgment day will come. So we are not praying outside the will of God. And making this kind of prayer is an expression of our desire to see the world that is free of sin, to see a world that is free of sin. So it's not all bad to pray that judgment befalls the people who are wicked. But for me, more importantly, when I make these imprecatory prayers, or when I see these imprecatory prayers, I view them as an expression of three different things. First, it's an expression of our frustration with these evildoers who seem to be getting away with sin. And so we take this frustration to God, because it's better to take it to God than to take it to man. So we take this frustration. It's an expression of our frustration. But not funny enough, great thing and wisely enough, we take them to God. And then second, it's an expression of our faith in God and how we view him and how we think of God. We think of God as our Father. So when you're praying this prayer, you're expressing your faith in God and how you view him and how you think of him, and you think of him as your Father who is capable of beating up your bullies. It's like when a child goes to the father and says, "Oh, daddy, this and this and this person is doing this and this and this." You go there because you know that your father can actually do something, that your father can actually beat up your bully. So when we make these imprecatory prayers, it's basically an expression of how we view God and who we think God to be. It's also, lastly, an expression of how we view ourselves in relationship to God, that we believe of ourselves to be children of God, coming to him to shtaki those who bully us and do us wrong. So it's an expression of our frustrations. It's an expression of how we view God and how we have faith in God that he is capable of doing something. He's capable and willing to do something about it. And it's also an expression of how we view ourselves in relation with God, that we view ourselves as his children, as God's children. And so we can come to him to make our frustrations known to him. So you see, making imprecatory prayers is not all bad. As a matter of fact, it reveals more of who we are and what we believe and what our beliefs are than the nature of the evildoer. It reveals more of us than the nature of the evildoer. And how I see it is that there are two different types of sinners. There are two different types of evildoers. There's a sinner who is repentant, who sees the wrong and turns away from the sin and turns to God. And the Lord always, always, always forgives and never turns his face from a repentant sinner. And we see that in the story of David, as in the many times he sinned and the many times he went back to God. David and so many other kings that we read about in the book of 1st and 2nd Kings that turned their ways from sin and from evil doing, and they went to the Lord, and the Lord always forgave. And then we have this unrepentant sinner who, instead of repenting, continues in sins, and on those we see the Lord's wrath unleashed upon them. We see Saul, that was the first king, and he was this kind of unrepentant sinner. And we see also so many other kings that we read about in the book of 1st and 2nd Kings that refused to turn back from their sins, refused to turn back to God, refused to change their ways. And on those we saw the wrath of God truly unleashed on them. So yes, we are supposed to especially love those people who wrong us and allow ourselves to be used of God to help them turn to God. But if they don't, there's also a space to go to God and pray for his judgment over them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So that is basically what I get from this chapter. Of course, there's also the part for praying and waiting for the Lord expectantly, which is I really love that. I think that's a really good expression of how we should pray and model of how we should pray, that we should pray to the Lord and then we be patient, and on top of being patient, that we should be patient in hope. We should be patient in faith, trusting that the Lord is going to hear us and do those things that we have prayed for. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for being part of this journey, and see you tomorrow.